So what a week it's been for Alabama football recruiting. Earlier on in the week, the Crimson Tide got a massive win in four-star running back Justice Haynes out the state of Georgia. A Georgia Bulldog legacy, and many believed that the Georgia Bulldogs were the team to beat in that recruiting battle. Ultimately, it's the Crimson Tide. And we fast forward to today, where Alabama gets in another huge win, this time for a four-star top offensive lineman in Olaus Alinen, the offensive tackle who just made his debut to American football not long ago as he came from Finland. Today, we need to talk about why this is such a big impact, what Alinen brings to the table, and everything in between. But before we do, as always, y'all know the drill. I need to hear from you. Hop down to the comments, Y for yes, N for no. Are you excited to see the improvements Coach Walford is going to be able to make on this offensive line? And let me know what you're thinking. If you are new to the channel, be sure to subscribe. Hit that bell notification as I do constant college football content. You don't want to miss any of it, and if you enjoyed this content, like and comment down below. But having said that, let's jump right in because this is a huge win for the Crimson Tide. One that was a really interesting recruiting battle to watch because in the final days, it was pinging between Miami and Alabama. Ultimately, it's Alabama who wins this battle. And this is a much-needed win for the Alabama Crimson Tide. Look, Alabama is recruiting at a really, really high level right now. Look at their class. There's just not the numbers in it, but they have one of the highest average recruit ranks in the nation. And when you look at their class top to bottom, plus the battles they're still in, it's pretty evident that this class is going to be a really, really good class for the Crimson Tide, something everybody in college football has come to expect. But at the end of the day, if you can win a battle for a four-star offensive lineman that stands 6'6", 315 pounds per 24/7 sports, you love that. And especially when you turn on the tape for Olaus. Because when you turn on the tape, there's a lot that you like. The ferocity he brings to the table is something you love, and you love at the offensive line position. He's not stopping until the whistle's blown. That's something we talked about with Wilkin Formby, and I went on a whole long spiel then about that's the type of attitude I want in my offensive linemen because they set the edge, they set a tone, and that tone becomes infectious. And if you can get multiple guys with that same mindset, you're really cooking with something. So I love what Coach Walford has been able to do early on as the Crimson Tide new offensive line coach, and that's the reason I asked the question at the intro, because I'm so interested in hearing from you all about what you expect him to be able to do with the offensive line this year. Remember, that was the one shaky area of Alabama last year, and if they can shore that up, they have weapons everywhere to be a incredibly dangerous team. But let's be honest, even if the offensive line just has incremental improvements over last year, this Alabama squad is going to be a dangerous squad. It's going to be a lot of fun to watch. But let's refocus in on what Olaus brings to the table, because another thing I really liked when I was watching him is he is ready in the run blocking category right now. He is a ferocious run blocker, and that's something that's going to translate to the next level. And as I always say, I'm never surprised if offensive linemen take some time. The difference in speed, strength, and technique required to be successful at the college level as compared to the high school level may as well be two different sports, because a lot of those guys have been in the college game for years, and they've had the benefit of being in a college strength and conditioning room for an extended period of time. But inevitably, this is a huge win because this is someone Alabama has wanted for quite some time. They were very early on identifying Olaus, and they've been recruiting him really hard. And so at the end of the day, it's great when your hard work pays off, especially when a team like Miami looked to be in a good position. And Miami has won several huge battles, whether we're talking Jaden Wayne, Francis Mauanoa, Jaden Rashada. There's a lot of different ways we can go with that Miami recruiting class, but you're able to keep Olaus not only away from Miami, but with the Crimson Tide. I think you have to love this addition. So what does this mean for Alabama's recruiting class as a whole? And interestingly enough, not only does this give them 14 commitments and put them within the top 10 recruiting classes in the nation, coming in at number 8, if we actually pay attention to the average recruit rank, we can once again see that Alabama is signing a phenomenal class, a point I pointed out earlier, but the reason I want to bring it back up is because if you look at last year's recruiting class, no, Alabama may not have signed the number 1 recruiting class in the nation. It was Texas A&M who signed a historic class, statistically the greatest recruiting class that's ever been signed in terms of high school rating and stars. But the reason why I bring this to your attention is because if you focus on the average player rating, Alabama actually signed the best class in the nation per that one metric. Now, that's not the metric that ultimately decides who has the number one class. So because of that, look, respect to Texas A&M. You signed the number one class. I'm simply pointing out that Alabama's class was incredibly solid from top to bottom. And what's more, if you actually go back to the year prior where Alabama had broken the record for the greatest recruiting class ever signed, last year's Alabama class actually had a higher average recruit rating than that class as well. I bring all this up because that's where I think this class could go. Whether Alabama signs the number one recruiting class in the nation or not, I'm not quite sure. But what I can tell you, based on what they already have and based on the battles they're in, this recruiting class is going to be nothing but solid, and I'm very excited. Because holistically, if we look at this, of the 14 prospects, 9 of the 14 rank as top 300 players per 24/7 Sports Composite. And what's important to note about that is 2 of the 14 are junior college players, so they're not weighed on the same scale. However, Alabama has great talent from the junior college ranks. The number one junior college player in the nation, Malik Benson, who's the number one wide receiver out of JUCO in the nation, and then the number 2 junior college player in the nation, Justin Jefferson, the number 1 linebacker in junior college. So, of those 14, really 12 are eligible for the top 300 players per all of high school football per 24/7 Sports Composite, and of those 12, 9 of them come in as top 300 players, 2 out of junior college, and the 3 stars and 4 stars that don't rank inside the top 300, if you look at them, they're all candidates for having major rises during their senior season. So this is an interesting class to keep up with, because not only is Alabama in a really solid position right now, but there's still so much room in this class and so many big-time battles. We're not done seeing these fireworks. These fireworks are going to extend over the next coming weeks and through the season, and I'm very excited. But there are several big names that we now have to keep an eye on, whether we're talking about Caleb Downs, whether we're talking about James Smith, Hunter Osborne. There are so many names we need to focus in on and see how these battles are won and lost, because this is an incredibly interesting recruiting class top to bottom for all institutions, but especially for the Crimson Tide, based on the needs they have, based on how well other institutions are recruiting, and based on the talent Alabama has in state. But because of all of those factors, I can't wait to hear from you. I think this is a fantastic win for the Crimson Tide. Olaus Alinen coming in as the number 122 player in all of high school football, the number 14 offensive tackle, number 1 player in his state, standing 6'6", 315 pounds. This is a guy that ferociously sets the tone in run blocking, and he has all the tools to be a very, very good offensive lineman at the next level. I can't wait to see what Coach Walford does. But ultimately, hop down to the comments. Let me know what you're thinking about this great pickup. That's it. See ya.